All right, I'm going to do a little shotgun slug review today. These are by Troy. These are made in America somewhere. I forget where. I'll throw that up. I think Florida? I don't know. It'll be on the screen. I actually picked a bunch of these up. I got 150 of them because I'm going to have an upcoming shotgun scope review. So stay tuned for that. So I will be throwing that on momentarily, but we're not going to make it about the scope in this video. Get it on there and just see how these shoot, how they group at, I don't know, 50, 75 yards, maybe 100. See how these do. So these are actually loaded with either Brennecke or Brennecke copy slugs. I believe they're actual Brenneckes if I remember correctly. Brenneckes are always supposed to be pretty accurate. We're going to put them through the Mossberg 500 here. So it's just a smooth bore, be running improved cylinder. I have an old slug test video where I shot all kinds of slugs through this, testing accuracy between different slugs. Like we had the Brennecke KOs, I had the Winchesters on there, the Remingtons, the Federals. I'll put a link in the description if you want to check that video out. But if I remember correctly, I hope I'm not wrong here, I should have checked it out beforehand. I was shooting 75 yards, and I think we were averaging like, I don't know, somewhere around a 3-inch group, maybe a hair more. So while this is a receiver mounted rail and not a cantilever rail off the barrel, which that would be more accurate because these barrels are just being screwed on by finger there. They wobble around with each shot. So they're not the most accurate shotguns, but I know about how this thing should shoot. So you know, shooting 50 yards, we should see 3 inches or under if these are good shooting slugs. So, but I'm also really excited to try these out because these were like the cheapest slugs I could find. And then it about blew my mind when I found out that they had Brennecke slugs loaded up in them, and they're American made, not imports. I don't think it states it here on the box. I'll throw it up on the screen, but these are a full power load because I wanted to make sure I got a full power load to actually really test out that scope, because a lot of the cheaper slugs, they're only like 1,300, 1,400 feet per second. And if I recall correctly, these are full power load, 1,600 feet per second slugs with a 1-ounce slug. Again, I don't think it shows it on there, but I thoroughly researched that before I grabbed these. So I'll get my shooting C set up out there and we'll get started. And I want to give a big thanks to my buddy John at Boomstick Revenge for letting us borrow the range today. All right, got the scope mounted up and we are ready to rock. I'm just starting out about 15 yards here. Take one shot, make sure we're on paper and see what necessary adjustments I need, and then we'll walk it out further. Safety. And I forgot, at this close a range, you're dealing with the wad as well as the slug. But I'm going to say that big ragged hole at the top is the wad and the slug's the one off to the left there. So I'm going to bring it over to the right a little bit and then walk it out a little further, 25. All right, I gave her some clicks to the right. Now we're at 25 yards. So I think the slug hit up there high where that first wad hit. So now I got to bring it down. Which of course that rise is to be expected because 15 yards is just way too close. But I just wanted to start close to make sure we were on paper. So I'm going to bring it down a bunch now. All right, brought her down. All right, so that one's a little right, but again, groups on a shotgun, especially through a smooth bore, they're going to be a lot bigger than a rifle group. So I'm going to walk her out 50 yards and get this thing finalized. All right, we're at 50 yards there now, and I'm just going to keep you guys zoomed in for these. So provided that it's still close to bullseye, I'm going to go ahead and do a 3-shot group. Sorry about the stupid camera moving here. I knew I was going to have a problem with that camera moving. What the? I thought the slow motion was cool because you can see the slug flying through the air, hit the target, and then hit the grass behind the target. Alright. I gotta say, I gotta review the footage here, but it's looking like not too promising down there at 50. So, even though those are burning keys loaded up in there, it's not always about the slug. It's about, you know, the charge and the wad they got in there and all that, whether or not they're going to shoot worth the crap. But I mean, that's why we're testing them. So if these keep printing not so great like that, I did bring some Winchesters with me, which this gun does shoot good. So that'll be able to verify for us that we're not, again, this isn't about the scope, but you know, if the Winchesters shoot real good and then these don't, then we know these slugs aren't very good. So but I'm gonna go ahead and try again before we switch over to those Winchesters. So I mean, we got about an 8-inch group down there, it looks like, and I can show you guys and measure all that later here in a sec. But I'm gonna go ahead and aim for that bottom red dot, do another 3-shot group and see what happens. And by the way, it's a nice cool day out. I wouldn't even say this barrel is warm. It's just like ambient temperature. I got a lot of comments like that on some of my other slug videos. Sorry about the wind there if you couldn't hear me for a second. But anyways, I got a lot of comments about the, you know, the barrel temperature and all that on the previous slug video. I'll have linked in the description. But I'm making sure she's not hot, so it's like ambient temperature right now. So we'll go ahead and do this second, 3rd shot group down there at the bottom. Yeah, I was gonna say that one was my fault. I thought I pulled it high right as the trigger went off. Yeah, up there in the bullseye. Well, where did that even go? Okay, yeah, right in the bullseye, but it should have been lower than that. I pulled that high at the last second. I'm gonna have to hold this slightly different. I'm trying to rest it in the bag and just kind of like, you know, one-hand it like you would with a rifle. But the trigger's so heavy on the shotgun that that's what just happened there. It caused me to pull that shot, so I'm gonna have to hold it slightly different for these groups. So anyway, starting over 50 yards, another 3-shot group, aiming at the bottom red dot, which as we can tell from the previous group, it is going to shoot them a little high, but it shouldn't have been that high. I pulled that shot, so. That's a lot better. And yep, clear off to the left, and that was a good shot, just like that first shot was. And that one split the difference. So you know, elevation's great, that's staying pretty consistent, but it's definitely slinging them left and right there. It can't not make up its mind where it wants the impact to be there. It's about I don't know, I'll go measure it real quick, but so we'll do that, and I'll set up a fresh target for the Winchesters, and should see that the Winchesters are going to shoot at least twice as good, if not better. Again, per my recollection, the Winchesters got about a 4-inch group in the previous video I mentioned. If it's not the scope, then we should see a lot tighter groups here in just a second with the Winchesters. So, you know, our first group was like 1, 2, 3, something like that. So wider than my fist there. I forgot to bring my tape measure down, but I'll get it on the other target up there. And then 1, 2, 3 right here was our last group. So pretty much the exact same size, maybe a little worse. So we can measure from the very edge of the target when we get up there to the red dot to get our group size. So that's where we were hitting. I'm gonna hang this new one so we can send these Winchesters down. All right, so remember we had one clear on the edge here, and then one right above the red dot. So yeah, you're looking at about a 6-inch group there. All right, so these are the Winchesters I'm going to run. Just your standard Winchester Foster type slug here. 1 ounce, 1600 feet per second. So these should be at least twice as good at 50 yards there. So I just want you to see without any cuts. I got the Winchesters going in here. Put the safety on and move you guys back over here. Get you zoomed back in. Get this camera back in the right spot. So now I'm just going to aim center mass, and do expect a point of impact shift by a considerable amount. That was one thing I was super surprised about in that video where I did that huge slug shootout. Every time I switched to a different slug, there was a massive shift in impact. They all hit a different spot, so you'd pretty much have to re-zero for every single slug. So they should still hit the paper, but it's very likely going to be a completely different spot. But here we go. Gotta get my bag right here. Oh, I was trying to go fast since I didn't want any cuts in the footage or fast forward or anything like that. Hopefully camera stayed on for all three of those, but yeah, there they are. Not my best shots in the world, but yeah, as you can see, they're all three kind of grouped together there, so I could certainly tighten that up some. I was just trying to put them on the paper and see if what I said stood true. So yeah, I mean, doesn't look like we're having any issues with that scope yet. Again, I'll have a review video on that coming up. But yeah, unfortunately, as far as these things go, not very accurate. You're looking at 6-inch groups at 50 yards there with those. Consistently, it would seem like, because both our groups were 6-inch groups. So those will work for just, I guess, plinking, and you could use them for deer. You know, out to 50 yards, I'd say. You know, if you're just going for a double long shot, something like that, you should be all right out to 50, but I certainly wouldn't try any further than 50. So if those are shooting a 6-inch group at 50 yards there, it's going to be at least a 12-inch group at 100, probably even larger. For them to be shooting that big of a group at 50 yards, they got to be pretty unstable, I would imagine. It's interesting, though, that they're spanning left and right. There's no like up and down variants. They're just all left and right variants. But as you can see with the Winchester there, and again, not my best shooting. I wasn't trying super hard or anything like that. I was just sending them down to verify, you know, the Winchesters are grouping together like they should. So I think that tells us all we need to know about these. You know, if they were going to shoot better for me, I was going to step it out 75, 100 and all that, but I don't think there's really any point, because we've already reached the limit of these guys here. So that's what you get with these. So you kind of get what you pay for there. You know, like I said, they'd work for training, anything inside of 50 yards there, and I guess you could even, you know, deer hunt out to 50 there, but that's what you get. You're limited to about 50 yards with these, unfortunately. But I gotta say, considering they're like the cheapest slugs I could find, and being American made, not imported or anything like that, for the price, that's not too bad, because you could do a lot worse than that with some of those imported unbrand things. I hadn't personally tried in 12 gauge, but I tried a bunch of different ones through 410, and they were absolutely horrible. All the imported slugs like Sterling, BPS and stuff like that. Check out the 410 playlist if you want to catch that, but my god, those were absolutely horrible, like way way worse than this. So compared to the 410 results on extremely cheap slugs, these aren't too bad for the price. That'll do it for this one, guys. Again, I'll put a link in the description to that big slug roundup test I did a few years back if you want to check that out. Again, stay tuned. We'll have a review. I'm basically doing a torture test on that scope there to see if it survives. I'm putting 100 slugs through it to see if it maintains 0 after that. And it's a good, budget optic, well under $100. So hopefully it survives. I was told by the company it will. Now, the shotgun community has really needed a good budget shotgun scope that will actually survive. So that's what I'm testing. So stay tuned for that. If you want to get yourself any of the products you see me using in my videos, like my shooting bag there, earmuffs, safety glasses, target stand I use, paper targets, steel targets, and more, link in the description for that. Thanks for watching as always, and I hope to catch you on the next one.